Hi, I'm Chayale.
Hi, I'm Hinty. Welcome to Your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Torah's perspective on relationships.
I would love to help people understand more of what that flow looks like. And I feel like there's so many nuances that go into what femininity is, and then specifically like that malchus creative process as well, that there's almost like a buildup that gets you to that place where you're able to enter into that state of flow, like a malchus flow. And I would love for our listeners to know how to get there, what it looks like, what's the internal experience of someone in that malchus flow.
Amazing, beautiful. That's like such a good way to get us started. So, maybe we have to talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't, also, just because I think the contrast is important. And maybe we've done a lot more of the what it isn't, which is why we're
Hmm.
coming to what it is. Um, I think let's also say this disclaimer that there's a spectrum in terms of where a woman might find herself. Like, you might be the type of woman that you need to be told to relax. You need to be told to take it easy. You need to be told to calm down more. You need to be told to do more self-care, to take more breaks, to not be so active. And then the other end of that spectrum is a woman who's really nailed taking care of herself, really nailed relaxing. She knows how to, like, be on that couch, very chill. She's really got that down pat. And I would say, in a certain way, this episode is for that woman. Maybe she's there naturally, that's her personality. Maybe she's there because she got so into the being side of Malchus, where, she really latched onto these ideas and felt very liberated by not needing to do, not needing to earn her value by doing, and that really embraced um, that side of femininity, which is the just relaxing, being, receiving, letting others give to you. And so if it's not speaking to you, then maybe it's not your next step. I just think it's important to put that out there, right? If you don't need to, if
Right.
you are doing so much, I will also say, even to the person who is very active, what that woman can look at is how she is being active, um, because there's different ways that we can be working hard. Some ways are inspiring and nurturing, and some ways are depleting. So, like you said, there's a lot of nuance here, and we'll try and sort of pull out some of the pieces that create, explain or articulate what that state of being really is.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I feel like we need a bunch of examples to kind of illustrate all the different nuances that we want to bring out when it comes to really showing a woman what it means to enter into a space of malchus and live from that midah.
Um, and I think that maybe we shortchange ourselves when we look at hard work as a negative thing or as a disadvantage. Um, Meaning, do we find ourselves admiring people who are relaxing a lot, let's say, and wishing to be them? And where's that coming from?
Mm,
And is that what we really want?
right. Yeah, it kind of like depends, like you were saying, where you're coming from. And that's a very interesting point because if we look at Jewish values, which is what we're supposed to be, Jewish and Hasidic values, I think that one of the most incredible Jewish values that we have are perseverance and hard work. And I think a lot of people could say a lot of things about Jews, but we are a hardworking people, and will survive anything.
Mhm.
So the idea of our purpose being just to sit and like relax. And again, we're not talking about, a vacation or like a Shabbos afternoon where that's a beautiful time to just sit and relax and play with kids. We're talking about just like a general energy to your day. Is your day the focus to just almost like be or like not exist or like not do? Or is there a focus of I want to create?
Yeah, I think where I noticed this coming up, I would say for myself and other women, is let's say in conversation when we're talking to each other as women and we're share like one woman will share another to another, like, I have so many people coming for Shabbos, or I had an event in my house last night, or I had such a busy week because one of my kids had a presentation and we had to do a doctor's appointment. And the response might be like, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. Like, you must be so exhausted. You must be like, just like, how do you like, are you okay? And like, how are you managing? And like, the sense being that like, almost like that's a bad thing, or like that's not a great week, like that's a hard week, as opposed to being like, wow,
Mm,
that sounds like a really full week. Like, sounds like you have so much going on. There's so much that you're part of and that you're generating. Or even, let's say, a woman will hear about another woman who's doing a lot, and she's like, why does she do so much? Like, she's always doing things. Like, like, what's kind of like, what's wrong with her that she's so active? I've gotten that. I've gotten that. I've been in those conversations a bit where there's like either like a judgment or like a surprise factor that there'll be a woman that's so active. Like, why doesn't she take a step back, or why doesn't she slow down, or what?
right.
So,
And I'll just interject with like maybe the things that women don't say out loud, but they're thinking, which is like something's suffering, like something's got to drop, like either her kids or not, either it's her kids or her husband or it's her family life or it's her friends, but like you can't keep all those balls up. Like
right.
there is a silent judgment for sure that comes around, I think.
Right. I'm saying either they might say it out loud, or they might just think it like something's got to give. She's probably neglecting herself, or she's probably neglecting her children, or both. So like this sense of, yeah, I guess like, how do we feel? Like, asking myself, how do I feel about hard work? How do I feel about being busy? How do I feel about um, like having a full schedule? What I'm generating, and noticing that there's this sense of wanting to protect myself from being somebody who's doing too much,
Mm,
and then noticing that
yeah.
actually not working for me. It's not a self protection, because one of the expressions of malchus is creation. So I actually have a part of me that wants to be creating.
What I think is so interesting about us both doing this podcast is that we're both coming from opposite extremes. Like I like and it's an important thing I think because I think different listeners will fit into different categories. So I'm coming from the place of like the workaholic mom, super mom who like was doing everything and balls were dropping. Like I am definitely coming from a place of knowing all about that and the busyness that I thought would give me value. And the busyness also that was like an avoidance and a numbing. So me as a person hearing the concept of malchus, what I hear about malchus is, oh, I could be without do and still have value. And that a little bit for me was part of my avida when it came to shifting into malchus, which was I do need to slow down. I do need to just be okay with a creative process that doesn't have to validate my existence. And so there was a little bit of a shifting gears, and I am nervous to become too busy or to be too creative, because what if I fall back into that mode of doing, and it externally looks the same as, let's say, someone who's active and creative, but I know for myself where it was coming from. So I would be weary to start getting into this like really busy successful mode. And then you coming from the opposite end of the spectrum, like what I'm hearing from you, you're saying like, why is the ideal not to work? Like the ideal should be creative, um be successful, or like have influence on your life. Don't be passive. And and both of them are trying to get to this middle, really balanced ground of what malchus truly is. So I feel like I'm coming from a place of like, that wasn't malchus, so what does it look like? And you're coming from your place, which is, from the opposite end of the spectrum, which is like, rest is best, and protects your energy because you don't want to run out of that stuff. So I think we're getting more close to, what does that balance actually look like? Like, what does that flow actually look like?
So I think that's very cool that you pointed that out, that we actually come from different ends in that sense. And I think that something that I saw in you, which really, I guess, turned on a light in my head, maybe in the context of exercise, I'm not sure exactly what the example was. And I said to you, like, wow, are you okay? You're working so hard. Or maybe it was in a retreat and you were carrying things from the cart to the thing. Um, and your response to me was, this feels really good for me. I enjoy this. And I was just like, wait, what? How does that make sense? Like, how could that be? How's that possible? Um, but then sitting with that and thinking about how, as you started off this conversation, which is Torah, and we have this value of Yagaiti Matsasi Tamin, and right, if you try hard, you'll succeed, and Lefum Tsara Agra, according to the effort is the reward, and a lot of a whole culture around how we call it avoidance. Hashem avodah implies toil, hard work. There is a way that our expression comes through in the form of toil, in the form of effort. And I think when we talk about that middle point, it's, what does that look like so that it feels as an expression of self, not as a quest for validation, like you were speaking about, or as like this exhaustion or overextending or completely out of my comfort zone and not, like not breathing, out of my depth, so to speak. So where's that position of I'm, and the word that now is sitting with me that's making it make sense is creation, because malchus is creation. So it's not so much about hard work for the sake of hard work. It's about, as a female, I want to be creating. I want to be generating something, and there's a certain creative flow that I want to be in to feel myself, to feel my best self. So if I'm avoiding work at all costs, I'm not going to find that. And if I'm working too hard, I'm not either going to find that, because I'm going to be like chasing my tail. So what's going to be the entry point for that?
What will help us truly understand it is like, even like looking at the spheres, seeing that there has to be some sort of balance. And I think like looking at the center of the spheres will help us actually understand like how we could get to a place of really feeling super balanced. Can I share your story, Chayla, of your upsharn? I thought it was so beautiful. So you're expressing to me like how you have this upsharn coming up, and right. So I know for myself, right, making any sort of party, as someone who is a classic Jomo who like loves to avoid crowds and loves to not be a part of any social gathering, because that's just not, you know, I'm a much more introverted person. And so I would get a lot of anxiety, like, oh my goodness, not only do I have to go to an upsherin, I have to plan an upsherin, right? So already the pressure is on. Making a simcha is huge. Family coming, people's opinions, people are looking, oh, you chose that tablecloth, just all of it. There could create a lot of pressure and a lot of fear. And from what I heard from you, the process, even right away from the beginning, was like calm, was relaxed. It was fluid, right? So already the fact that there's like a calm, relaxed atmosphere, you're not rigid. So there's already I'm going to go through the spheres. So like there's a flow, right? So let's say take the concept of das. Das is connecting with a concept. The only way to connect to something is if there's like an ease. Like, yeah, of course you're going to analyze and figure out all the details. And yeah, you're going to have some ideas of like what you want your upsharing to be like, but you're connecting with it. You're not staying only in one place. There's like a flow, no? And then,
I think even we can take a step back to get to das, where I'm in a when I have it when an idea settles with me. So it's a combination of chachma and bina, right? Chachma is the vision, and bina is the execution, or how that vision looks in real time. So if I have a clear vision and a clarity on my execution, and even if my vision is that I want to be calm, whatever's executed, like let's say my whole vision is that the entire vision for this simcha is a state of calm. So any of the execution, I have to check back in with the original vision. Does this fit with the vision for calmness? So then when I get to das, and that like das is like almost like, okay, I settle on the plan. Like it's integrated. It's official. Like I commit to it. I commit that we're going
mm,
ahead with the vision of a calmness that is present through every stage of integration, which means I can't do something, not I can't, but I don't want to, if I'm sticking to that vision, right? If I've made that, if I've integrated that vision, it's like really settled inside of me, then every step that I take is going to be about maintaining that sense of calmness.
mm, I love that. So like your set intention, let's say, was a state of calm. And then that set intention is your idea. And also, like, when you say execution, you mean like the understanding of how you are going to execute this idea, like not actual execution, because that would ultimately, right, be like end of the line. But like the understanding, the clarification, the details of what that idea is, and all that has to match this like set intention. So that commitment and that connection to that idea, it is going to follow through all the way throughout,
Yeah, yeah,
which
you're
is so
still
cool.
talking. Yeah, you haven't done anything yet. You're still in the planning stages. And, but as I'm going to go into the details of the plan, if I have the clarity that the vision is calm, so that if I'm in the plan and something comes up, I don't know, let's say you think of, okay, I want matching tablecloths, but in order to get matching tablecloths, I now need to rent them. And renting them is stressful for me. So then it's like, well, do I really like, is that going to fit with the vision, right? I'm committed to a calm. Is that going to take away my sense of calm? And do I care more about matching tablecloths, or do I care more about being calm? And I'm maybe then thinking, well, okay, there's where the creativity comes in. Is there a way to have matching tablecloths that I can still be calm?
Mhm.
So it's a very there's a certain sense of clarity, but at no point am I allowing myself to get derailed by a secondary value from the
Mm.
original core value. And
Beautiful.
and I'm saying calm isn't even a we didn't really go deep enough with calm. Calm would be probably a better way of articulating that would be if I want to go about this in a way of that has an energy of peace in my relationship and in my home, so that when we get to the end of the line and this is a family simcha, it feels like a family simcha. It doesn't feel like everyone was fighting up until the bell rang and then we all put on smiles and said, welcome everybody, thank you so much for coming. We were just short of killing each other before you walked through the door.
Thank God you're here.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to going into a Shabbos meal where you're having a lot of people, or a bat mitzvah or a bar mitzvah, or even in a wedding where, like, you know, like the curtain opens and there's that fake smile that just comes on your face because, like, we barely
Yeah,
made it here alive, you know?
of course. Of course, of course. Um,
So the
so
sense
relatable.
then
So
is
I
like,
love that.
if you've had those experiences, then part of you just wants to say, like, okay, so just forget it. Let's not do it, right? If we're gonna make this upsharnish, this wedding, this bar mitzvah, this bat mitzvah, and show up all wanting to kill each other, so then let's not do it, right? Let's forget it, right? Let's order a stack of pizza boxes and, I don't know, a cake, and come in our pajamas, and, you know, like, it's almost like giving up. And maybe that
Mm,
feels liberating. It does, because it's like I don't have to deal with any of the pressure, but is that really what I want? Or do I just not know
mm.
how to do it in a way that would feel peaceful?
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is that the set intention of that combination of Chachma and Bina, and then when you're really connecting and you're committing yourself to it, there's something in it that also connects to a deep desire. Like maybe like, I don't know, Retzin before it. But like, it's not just shutting yourself down. Like, it's so interesting. I love that you're bringing that up because I think a lot of people would look at malchus or like look at the example that you said, like, oh, she just ordered pizza and everyone's in their pajamas. And they'd be like, ah, malchus, like because she didn't do anything to impress anybody or,
Right. She
and
honored
she
herself.
doesn't care what anybody thinks. And
Right.
right.
She didn't put in
It's
any
like she
effort.
honored herself. Right. And I love the nuance that you're really bringing here, which is what this episode is about, which is like malchus is not avoiding pain. Malchus is not protecting energy, right? Malchus is still a creative process that is born from desire, from will, from a creative place to want to bring something to the table. And that's why malchus and kesser is right is so connected. So the end is wedged in the beginning is wedged in the ends. Like the culmination, which is what malchus is supposed to be linked to a set intention from above, which is supposed to be a desire, like something, not a nothing or a laziness or a avoidance, right? So we're supposed to have something there. I love that you're bringing that up. So this balance that you're bringing up with your upshard was that set intention, and at the same time in a balanced, harmonious way. And then the following steps that follow through, which were like, let's say things coming out of nowhere, right? So you didn't plan every single aspect of it because you're not God, so you can't plan that suddenly your neighbors are offering to make cookies for you, or suddenly like someone shows up at your doorstep and they're like, oh, we came early, right? So how do you deal with those situations? But what I heard from you was you checked in with your set intention, which was, I want to be calm and I want this to be a creative, peaceful upturn. And so, yeah, someone came early. Beautiful. Like, yes, this is what we made. We made a simcha and someone came early. Or like someone offered to help. And instead of you getting caught up in this is stressful, this is not what I planned, you were open to it because there was just like this harmonious check in of, is this back with my set intention? Yes, it would be so nice if someone prepared cookies. Lovely. Right. So it
Yeah.
was like, it almost like uncomplicated things.
Right. Also, maybe in the past, or even in the moment, they might, like, someone offering to help. It's the night before and someone says, can I make something for you? And there's a part of me that goes, if I need help the night before, what does that mean about me? So that
Hmm.
means that I'm not ready. I didn't plan enough, or I'm like, I'm in distress. I need help. So there's these judgments that we take on in these situations based on what we think people would think, or based on what we would maybe even judge ourselves, right? How could I need help now? Um, and if I can take that away, then I could just say, wow, that's so generous and kind. And I can receive it and be grateful for it. And it's such a gift. And it doesn't mean anything about me. Creation is, we can't create, um, when we talk about creativity and flow, like you can't create in a judgmental environment, for example, right? Like, I don't know, an artist can't paint a painting if someone's standing there, like, questioning them, like, are you sure you want to put the brush there? Are you sure you want to go with that color? Like, do you have every detail of this painting thought out? Like, what's your timing going to be like? Like, imagine interviewing someone or like interrogating an artist as they're painting a painting. I don't, I imagine, I'm not an artist in that way. I imagine it would be something that would obstruct the flow. So the artist has a vision, and then there's a creative process in allowing themselves to let that vision come to life. But if we are our own interrogator in the process, and there's the, is this going to be impressive enough? Am I going to make a good impression? Am I good enough in some way? So then I'm going to get disconnected from myself, like my own center point of calmness in the stress of showing up in the way I think either people need me or want me to show up.
So what I'm hearing you say is like the judgment is definitely going to throw you off. Safety is crucial, and having a deep essential value is also is crucial to being able to tap into this malchus energy.
Maybe we don't think so much about that original point usually, like that original desire that you were talking about. We're naturally more focused on what needs to get done and less focused on what it is that we want to create.
Mm.
Maybe because also as women we lean into bina very heavily and gavura, so that's the judgment and the details of the planning. Very often I think we just jump straight into like, what's my to-do list and how am I going
Hmm.
to get it done? And we skip the
Hmm.
step of what am I creating with this? And if we skip that step, I think that's where we get to either the frustration of I give up, or the perfectionism of being showing up in this perfect and unrealistic way that we then do pay for in other areas of our life.
I love that you're bringing that up. That again, that like link between your desire and malchus, because like we were saying before, um, you could, at least for me, I could get very much caught up in, oh, this feels masculine again, because creative for me sometimes was very masculine, or like persevering or working hard did feel very masculine. But as soon as I'm hearing you say hindi tap into your desire, because your desire will lead your intention, and then your intention will be able to help you keep focused as you're translating everything that you're doing, whatever that creative process is. So that reminds me to stay aligned with my femininity, because I'm basically bringing, yes, I'm creating a creative process, but it's focused on malchus, which is like that receptive endpoint, which will keep me um, balanced in throughout the entire process.
Yeah, we have like two feminine classic examples of femininity. One being Shabbos, right? Shabbos is feminine, but Shabbos comes after a week, right? There's like Sheshes Yamim Tavod. For 6 days, you're going to work. Ubayom Hashvi Shabbos, right? And on the seventh day, you're going to rest. There is a effort. There is an investment. There is a plan, like a planning stage, a work stage, an effort stage that brings the Shabbos.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that I have to arrive at Shabbos collapsing. The work, the work could be getting in touch with myself. The work could be figuring out what my desire is. The work could be trusting myself, Hashem, my husband, right? All the effort could be an effort that's focused on energy, having the right energy, having clarity, being decisive, knowing what I want. But there isn't, Shabbos doesn't come first. Like there has to be, the world was created and then Hashem stopped to enjoy it. So you can't start by sitting on your couch because then what are you enjoying? You didn't create anything to enjoy.
Mm.
If you start by being, then what are you being in? There isn't and the other classic example obviously is children giving birth, right? Like pregnancy and childbirth is immense effort, physical, mental, emotional. And then there is a rest period when you give birth to a baby and your body feels that like intense relief, right? Like you've been through that ring of fire, and then you feel that like physical relief that can last for a long time when your body is just like, we did it, right? But there was like, and then your avodah, or you have a time period where a mother just needs to be with her baby, right, in your bed, like just relax and rest. But because there was a whole 9 months of work.
Right. That's when there's like that culmination. But like even so, like where she's lying in bed, which would be such a huge idea for me, being someone who like deeply values being active and like it's hard for me to sit. So, but even so, like that for sure would be an idea for me. But even for someone who that's not an idea for, like they're happy to sit on the couch or is happy to sit, there's still so much idea in nursing and still taking care of your home. You're just doing it in a more um it's more in a not revealed sense. And I think that's an important piece to bring. Like when it comes to Shabbos, right? We do stop. We stop the toil. What kind of toil do we stop? We stop the toil that keeps up the appearance that we're the ones who run our world, that we're the
Mm.
ones who are making it all happen, that we are the creative process to our lives. And then we stop what? We stop saying that and we allow the world to go on and to show ourselves that Hashem is the one who's keeping us alive and making everything still function and our businesses will still flourish even though we're not working on that day. And so like, even though on Shabbos there is an experience of stopping, there's the experience of stopping of all the yigia, of all the toil of where, where we say like you have to put in your own hishtadlus, right? And it's almost like an experience of bitachon. Like Shabbos takes a lot of bitachon for people. So it's an experience of like, it's still avaida. Like bitachon is avaida. It's hard. It's hard work and you have to keep going at it to like throw yourself and trust in Hashem and just come under his shade. But it's a more internal experience. It's a more internal work. It's still work. So when a mother is like resting, or even by the way, during the gestation period, people will say, oh, so when a woman is pregnant, like, what are you doing? Because she's not actively saying, baby, grow, right? So it's happening in a more within experience. And I think that's also where people will say will get a little bit confused with just being, but that being experience is an avoda. It's just a more internal avoida. It's not out there in front of your face, or I'm putting in all of my nishtadlus kind of avoida. It's a more internal experience avoida.
Yeah, I think like the maybe what's consistent is that as a yid, we don't whatever we're whatever modality we're in, it's with intention. So if it's a rest, if it's a mode of rest, there's intention. Like we're being specific and intentional about how we're resting, what we're resting from. There isn't the sense of like we're checking out.
Mm,
Like
mm.
I don't care, I don't have to, and like that would be that wouldn't we wouldn't be honoring ourselves really.
Okay, I have this fascinating example. So I was taking a horseback riding lesson once, and something we were working on was how to get the horse to stop. He wasn't stopping exactly when I wanted him to. Okay. Fascinating. So I
Hmm.
would go at a trot and then get him to stop. And whatever, using different techniques to get him to really understand that stop means stop. And what started happening was, but by the end of the lesson, when I asked him to go, he went. Like he dove into it. So even though the intention of the entire lesson was to get him to stop, it so emphasized and catapulted his go, right? Because like
Wow.
when you're stopping, it helps you just like to spring back into action. And that's what our stopping is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be ready, like let's gather, let's get ready, and then launch back into Sunday, launch back into your week. It's an active experience. I thought it was
It's
so
interesting.
cool.
That's so cool because we I've definitely experienced the difference between a rest that's energizing and a rest that when I have to get up from it, I'm annoyed. I don't want to be taken away from like it's more that checking out. Like I'm zoning out on my phone, probably being mindless about it, and then anything that is going to stop it is going to feel like an interruption, and I just want to climb back into that hole and be there again. Whereas if I was intentional about a nourishing rest, um, I'm much more likely to be ready for the next step. Um, but I want to just maybe add something. There is a certain like effort comes with a certain discomfort.
Mm,
It could be the effort of figuring out what you want has a certain discomfort. There's a vulnerability there. The effort of, I don't know, setting tables and grocery shopping and taking care of your children. Like there is a effort. Effort is effort because it comes with discomfort. Um, and I think, let's say, where I was coming from is like I need to avoid discomfort as much as possible. Like discomfort
mm,
is bad. Being uncomfortable is a bad thing. And we need to try and avoid it. And I definitely see that as something that is a narrative maybe we're subscribing to without realizing, or that it's be like it's present in the world, where we want to avoid discomfort. We're afraid of it. And I think that can also have us shortchanging ourselves from what we can be creating because we're afraid of being uncomfortable. And it's not a bad thing. And we're also protecting our children from it. And it's not necessarily working for them that we are trying to have them not be uncomfortable at all costs. And maybe we can build a tolerance for discomfort and then be proud of ourselves for what we accomplish.
yeah. Yeah. Like how many times will we just like avoid something because yeah, we just don't want to be uncomfortable, as opposed to like helping our children learn that tolerance is a good thing, and resilience, building resilience is so important for this generation. I love that.
You're uncomfortable in social settings. So a natural reaction with that to that would be, so don't go into social settings. Avoid them at all costs. And is that really what you want? Is that what you want? Do you, and you might tell yourself that that's what you want because the fear of discomfort is overwhelming you. But do you not want to connect with other people? Is that really, really true?
Yeah. This actually happened to me recently. Like we were invited for a Shabbos away, and there were a lot of discomforts um, built into this Shabbos being away. There's a lot of comforts too, because it's nice to get away for Shabbos. But um, and the focus that in the beginning I had was, oh, this is going to be like so uncomfortable. I wish I could just like avoid this whole situation. Just send my husband, and like I don't have to be involved in any of the discomfort. And instead, I it like fully embraced it and thought like what would be so like desirable about the Shabbos, and let me focus on what is exciting, what is nice, and let that be my compass for what I want out of the Shabbos. Let this be a creative experience for me. And what was interesting was, yes, at the same time, I definitely was resilient, and there were times where I had to take care of myself or whatever, step out for a little bit. But the idea is that it wasn't comfortable in many respects. And at the same time, because kind of like with your upshare and with my set intention of what I wanted out of that Shabbos, I was still able to navigate it and come out at the end and really be happy. Like set intention fulfilled, goal achieved, and it was great.
Yeah, I
What's
think that's all.
interesting is just to bring this back to relationships. So oftentimes I'll be speaking to a woman and she'll be like, wait, so you think about all that every time you're talking to your husband, or you always like see his value, and anytime he has an idea, you say, wow, I hear you. And like, and she'll be like, that's a lot. And I hear that on the one hand, and sometimes maybe if you're so uncomfortable with something, it could feel overwhelming. And at the same time, no one said that marriage is going to be just like a breeze and like throw your jacket over your shoulder, like it's it's supposed to be not an avida, like a toil, but it is a relationship, and that relationship needs work, just like all of your relationships need work. But where are you putting your energy? Are you putting your energy into avoiding him, or chas v'shalom into fights, or are you putting your energy into creating an incredibly beautiful, um, desirable relationship? Or are you put like the energy is going somewhere? Like, where is it going?
Because we're in Gullus and there's a lot of sheker that we have to sift through. There's this concept,
Hmm.
effortless, right? Effortless chic, effortless fashion, effortless, 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 right? Like ultimate compliment,
Right.
effortless. And I
I
think
woke
that
up like this. I love
I
when people do
think
that.
we're not we're not being fair to ourselves um, when we are believing that there's such a thing as value that comes without effort. Like Torah tells us, "Lo yagaiti umatzasi al tamin." If someone tells you that they didn't put in effort and they succeeded, do not believe them. It's not true. It's not
That's
true.
not
There is
true.
no success. There is no success without effort. And we sometimes feel like if we have to put in effort to make a relationship work, there must be something wrong with us, right? If I had to go
Mm.
for coaching or if I had to learn a skill so that I could feel connected to my spouse, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my relationship? Why isn't it effortless? And there's this sense of frustration of I have to put in effort and almost like a shock. And that's it's not it's just like a misrepresentation of the truth. Yes, a relationship, because of how high in value it is, takes a tremendous amount of effort. intention, focus, honesty, trust. And these things don't happen by themselves. They're not supposed to. And they're not happening for anyone by themselves. So if someone's leading you to believe that things are just working for them without them doing anything for it, it's not true. It really isn't true. I'm not saying people are pretending to have good lives and they have bad lives. I'm saying that anybody who is creating something of value is putting in effort to get there. That's an absolute truth.
You're not born an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor. Like, you can't go into surgery. You need years and years before you get that. And yes, some people are more talented than others, and that's beautiful. And when it comes to relationships, some people are more talented. They might have a springboard. They might have certain things that they were born into, or they had a good their parents put in a lot of effort, so they learned things on the way, so they're already coming a little bit more armed. But that yagia happened. It happened while they were growing up, and so they learned those special talents of what it looks like to be mashpia makabel, or whatever it is, to trust. But they're still learning, and that has to happen. And if it's not, then it's hard.
It's like the example of a surgeon, right? So like you said, if you grew up and your father was a surgeon and you went to work with him, so then yeah, for sure you have a head start. So, but that's part of the story. So then your education started when you were 5. So if I'm only starting now, I have a lot of catching up to do. I think there's like a managing of expectations that has to happen. We have to examine if we're being realistic in what we're expecting, like relative to the effort. Are the results that we're expecting matching the effort that we're putting into it? And sometimes someone will feel like they're working so hard and they're not getting results. They're probably working hard in the wrong way.
So I want to actually just acknowledge all of our listeners, because if you're listening to this podcast, it means you are already engaging in yagia. You're willing, you're open, you're exploring, you're trying to hear, what can I do better in my relationship? I think that's amazing. I was definitely at a point in my life where I thought I had the perfect relationship and I knew all the answers. So if someone is open and willing to hear and trying to implement something new that they heard in this podcast, you're already investing effort. And take it gentle, take it slow, and at the same time, we're acknowledging you. Like, the effort is there, and slow and steady is a perfect way to go at it.
And I think as a community of women, we can start celebrating each other instead of looking for the effortless chic and the effortless relationship and the effortless simcha and the effortless outfit. We can start acknowledging and saying like, wow, it probably took a lot of work for you to get here, and that's admirable. I'm sure getting to this place in your relationship took a lot of learning and a lot of trial and error, and I admire that. I'm sure getting to this place in your parenting and in your hosting and in your career took a lot of effort, and I celebrate that. I celebrate you as a woman who works hard and invests in herself and invests in her family, and I look up to that and I want that, and we don't pity each other for doing what we should and want to be doing. So we feel like we're in good company in our efforts.
Yeah, I love that, because it could feel lonely sometimes when you're that go-getter. I've definitely heard that, felt that, where like I'm creating, and someone will say like, why don't you just sit down? Because I'm making another person feel uncomfortable because I'm so active. Why do I have to stop? Because you don't feel comfortable with how active I am, right? So I love that. Like, let's celebrate those who are in their creative process, and let's not force them to stop. Let's jump up and help.
Amazing.
I love it. Okay, see you next time.
We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.